Hey y'all, welcome to Sandy's Library. I'm Sandy, and in this video we're going to talk about the death of my great-grandfather Willie's second wife, Jessie. These are old family tales about my grandmother's people. If you need visuals, there are links posted in the description outlining both of my grandparents' family trees. And just real quick before we get started, I do have the sniffles. We have a lot of smoke in the air around here, and it's starting to take its toll. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so here we are. It's the summer of 1920, and Willie's about to lose another wife. Nevertheless, in the weeks leading up to Jessie's death, and y'all, my grandmother used to talk about this all the time with her sisters. They said that some strangely magical things began to happen in those weeks leading up to Jessie's death. And those were their words, strangely mystical. One day, when Elsie, Annie Mae, and Aubrey were home with their sick mother, Jessie asked Annie Mae to get her a cool drink from the nearby spring because the well water wasn't good enough for her. So, like a good little kid who wanted to please her mother, Annie Mae, who was around 9 or so, went down to the spring to get some cool, refreshing water for her ailing mother. On her return home, she saw a woman wearing a long black dress and bonnet, and she was walking down the road toward their house. Annie Mae said that she thought the woman was Miss Mary Miles coming to visit. Y'all remember Miss Mary? She's the first woman Willie wanted to marry after Lizzie died, but her mother wouldn't hear of it. Anyway, this supports the idea that Mary did remain a close family friend, even though Willie went on to marry someone else after her mother made her turn him down. I'm not sure if I could be friends with a woman that my husband wanted to marry before he met me, especially when she was forced to say no. I mean, who's to say she wouldn't change her mind? Especially when her mother was the cause of her rejection in the first place. But that's just me. Anyway, so Annie Mae runs back to the house announcing that Miss Mary was on her way. When the family went out onto the porch to greet their visitor, no one was there. It's also reported that there was nowhere else for this woman to go. She simply vanished into thin air. Later, after Jessie's death, the family grew to identify this event as a sign of Jessie's impending death. They all believed the woman walking down the road toward the house was the ghost of Lizzie Fuller Williams, Willie's first wife. And while it's true, I do believe that Jessie was dealt a bad hand in life. I mean, her first husband, a mobbly dude, died on her and left her with 4 kids. And then she had to go and marry a guy who viewed himself as still a member of his late wife's family. I mean, that's some tough luck. Or an ambitious soul who's trying to pay back some karmic debt. Either way, and even though I may feel a measure of compassion for her, I still have a beef with Jessie over how she treated her stepchildren. And I may not be the only one. It's also reported that about 3 weeks prior to Jessie's death, the Mobley children had all deserted their mother. And remember, Serene, the eldest, would not come to the Williams farm with Jessie and the other kids after Willie and Jessie married. It said that she would only come out to the farm for short periods of time before she'd get mad at her mother for whatever reason and return to her grandparents' home and Iris. During this time, though, Serene was married to Jack Portman and living away from home, and so was Aubrey. And when oldest son James married Maddie Fuller, his younger sister Mamie moved in with them. It's said that as Mamie moved out, Willie told her, "Look here, Mamie, are you going off and leaving your mother when you know she's dying?" It's reported that Mamie said she was afraid of contracting the TB. To which Willie says, "My children may take it too, but if we all leave, who's going to take care of your mother?" Willie's pleas fell on deaf ears, though. Mamie left, and she didn't return. Maybe Mamie and her siblings were afraid of contracting tuberculosis. I can't say. But one thing's for sure, you'll have to drag my girls away from me, no matter what I'm dying from. So, for me, the Mobley children's actions, or lack thereof, speaks volumes about Jessie's mothering capabilities. As the story goes, every day when Willie came in from the fields at lunchtime, Jessie would cry and beg Willie to go to Serene and ask her to come see her. It's said that for 5 consecutive days, Willie went to Iris and delivered Jessie's message to Serene. On the 5th and final day, Willie told Serene, "I'm not coming back here anymore. Your mother may beg me, but I'm not going to. This is the last time. Your mother is dying." To which Serene replies, "I just can't go, Mr. Williams." Willie returned home, where he told Jessie, "Serene says she can't come. Don't ask me to go back over there anymore. I've been up there 5 days running in the hot sun. It's too hard on me, and I have to work." By all accounts, Jessie's response was, "No need to go back anymore, and when I die, don't send word to any of my children that I'm dead. Just let them find out the best way they can." During the last 2 weeks of Jessie's life, neither Serene nor any of the Mobley children made any attempt to visit their mother. Aunt Elsie, my grandmother's younger half-sister, whom I adored, said this, that she was about 5 when her mother died, and she remembers being outside playing in the dirt. Yet, she could hear her parents talking through the open window. She remembered hearing her mother say that all of her children had deserted her. She also remembered Jessie asking Willie to keep her 2 little girls together. And why Jessie thought she had to ask that is beyond me. Those 2 little girls were Willie's kids too. He wasn't going to let them go anywhere. The last words that Elsie heard her mother utter were, "I'm blind. I can't see anymore." And what a horrible thing for a child to have to hear, for it to be the last thing they hear from their mother. Nevertheless, on July 9th, 1920, at 12 o'clock high noon, Jessie Walters Mobley Williams took her last breath. She'd been married to Willie for 11 years. She was 40 years old. Jessie was buried in the family cemetery the following Monday and very near little Helene's grave. By the day of the funeral, the Mobley children had learned of their mother's death and showed up at the cemetery. It's said that Serene came running down the road, screaming and yelling. As the story goes, Serene grabbed Willie around the neck as she sobbed, "Oh, Mr. Williams, I'm so sorry Mama's gone." Willie was said to have pushed her away, saying, "Don't try to comfort me. Your mother would have laid there and rotted if it wasn't for me and my kids. None of you tried to stay and help." It's reported that Willie turned and walked away from her. And you know, I've always heard that Willie was completely disgusted with the Mobley children. But for me, it speaks volumes that all of Jessie's children deserted her while she was on her deathbed. And it doesn't say anything to me about the children. No, it speaks volumes to me about Jessie's character. And y'all can argue that the children were afraid of catching what she had, but it still speaks volumes to me about her character. But I can understand Willie's disgust with the Mobley children. His daughter, Jessie's stepdaughter, had lost her only child less than a year earlier because she was taking care of Jessie. My grandmother never held that against her step-siblings, though. She knew what Jessie was, but she didn't take it out on Jessie's children. My grandmother was very close to all of the Mobley children. In fact, I remember going to see Uncle Aubrey and Aunt Lavert all the time when I was a kid, and her stepbrother James too, but he died when I was a little kid, so I don't remember him as well as I do his brother. There's a short note in our half-cousin's manuscript at the end of the section labeled Jessie's Death. It's about an event that happened involving Aunt Allie that occurred shortly after Jessie died. Allie was cooking supper when it began to thunder and rain. As the storm progressed, it started to hail. Allie said the hail was as big as hen eggs, and she became scared, and in her defense, she was only 13. But anyway, they had 3 or 4 calves at the time, but didn't have a stable to keep them in. The calves had taken shelter underneath this huge chinaberry tree that stood between the porch and the fence. When the hail came, the calves crawled up under the porch. Allie said that she and the family stood on the porch and watched a black twister go by. She stated that at the time, she didn't know what a tornado was and had to ask her father what was happening. And I thought I was sheltered. But after the storm, it said that they had a hard time coaxing the calves to come out from under the porch. Allie said it got to the point to where Willie had started talking about tearing the porch apart before the calves finally came out. Okay, so I've heard about the infamous tornado of 1920. And I wonder if that's the one they were talking about. But anyway, Jessie's gone. Nothing will do Willie but to find himself a new wife. So, we're going to get into Willie's hunt for his next wife in the next video. Because, y'all, we ain't even close to being done with Willie and his wives. Oh, no. So, stay tuned. Until next time, later, Gators.